Hello, everyone, and welcome to Who Won the Week, your weekly dose of TV advertising news and analysis. My name is Aaron Taub. I'm EDO's content marketing manager. And today we have a really exciting show. We're going to be talking about the summer movie schedule and how the big studios are working to use TV advertising to drive people back to the theaters. And I am joined today by a very special guest, the most insightful LinkedIn poster in all of EDO, and our general manager of studio analytics, Steve Siskind, a man who's worked as a marketing executive at Paramount and 20th Century Fox, where he helped spread the word about films like The Wolf of Wall Street, Selma, Transformers, and Iron Man. Steve, how you doing today?
I'm great. Thank you for that kind introduction. And it's exciting to be talking about movies as we segue into June and hopefully a great time for the studios and consumers.
Awesome. Yeah, so this is an interesting summer movie season. I know you've told me in the past that there are fewer movies out now than in past summer seasons due to the work stoppages that occurred last year. Can you give me a sense of just how many fewer movies are in theaters right now than a normal year? How sparse are things?
It's sparse in terms of fewer big films. The independent films are filling up schedules and some what we call using baseball lingo singles and doubles, films that have lower expectations of opening to 30 or 50 versus 100 have populated the schedule so far. And what's missing in May was what you had last year with Guardians of the Galaxy and Little Mermaid, those cleanup hitters, those $100 million openings. And that's why the press is focused on box office being down. It's not so much that you had less films, but you made only $200 million from the openings versus 300 last year because those films are opening now to closer to 50 million than the 100 million that we saw in years past.
Got it. And so tell me a little bit about what this means for the studio marketers in the sense that if there's fewer cleanup hitters, fewer big sort of blockbusters that you're going up against advertising, does that present an opportunity for you, or is it sometimes a negative in the sense that maybe if there's fewer movies, there's fewer people in that kind of movie going mindset? What's the playing field like in a season with fewer big hits coming out early in the season?
Yeah, I'm a the glasses half full type of guy, which is that it's an opportunity. You know, in the past, if you were advertising in big events in May, whether it be the NHL, the NBA, or even the Kentucky Derby, you would see, 8 to 10 other entertainment clients. And we really don't look at it just as theatrical. We look at it as all entertainment being competitive, whether it's a launch on Netflix or HBO. And the fact of the matter is, having less of those there is an opportunity for you to break through on our metrics, our engagement metrics. And it's also an opportunity if you're not, quote, a four quadrant action spot, you have a better chance to be remembered by people if there are only 3 or 4 ads there. And that's what we saw a lot of in May. That will change now that the schedule is not only heaving up with volume, but it's heaving up with the bigger pictures going forward. The last part of what you said, though, is key, which is the glass is half empty. People say it's tough that you didn't have those $100 million movies to put your trailers on earlier in the month, and it's hard that the habit of going to movies is a little bit lower now. So it'll be up to the movies opening the next 5 weeks to reignite that habit.
Got it. All right, that makes sense. A little half empty, half full, depending on how you look at it. What we'll talk a little bit about some of the big family films coming out this summer because I know you've said those are really really important. But what's sort of come out already, and what's your assessment? I know Garfield came out. I know Mad Max Furiosa. How did those how effective were they in their marketing?
Yeah, I think that's the key question because at the core, studios are not obsessed about, last year's gross to this year's gross. They want profitability. And Garfield is a profitable movie for Alcon that did it and Sony that's distributing it. It was a lower budget. It really hit the bullseye with families and Hispanics, and it actually is huge overseas, especially in South America, Latin America. So that works. If, which everybody was a little iffy about its opening, has now had terrific 2 weeks of holdover, and what you're seeing at If, it's going to make 100 million in the U.S., so that has a chance for profitability. So two films, both basically family films, doing very, very strong. And the biggest movie in terms of overperformance, I would say, in May was Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, which not only opened better than its last installment, which is very, very hard with the franchise, but introduced new characters and a three-arc storyline. And was well loved. So that's a movie that accomplished every goal, which means that there'll be two more films possibly over the next 4 years, and a rebirth story-wise, which is the ultimate goal of franchises and why they work or don't work.
Got it. Cool. Thank you for that insight. Now coming up, it's a big summer. Family movies. We've got Despicable Me 4. We've got Inside Out 2. Tell me about some of these movies that are coming up. What they mean to sort of the general movie industry, um, in the context of the summer ramping up for business, and also, um, what kinds of marketing strategies do we think we'll see from these films?
Yeah, I think that the big three is not debated by anyone. It's going to be Deadpool versus and Wolverine, which is the sure thing, and then Inside Out 2 and Despicable Me 4, which are the films that you feel very good about, but you're seeing the most, I would say, studio and parent company efforts behind because they're so important. And the fact that they're sequels is great because it allows you to sometimes do not only short form, but also to have a lot more fun with it because they've established not only story, but what the comedy reason rationale is and what the beats are. And the marketing we're seeing in them is terrific. Not as much, I would say, for what's happening now, but how early they started.
Got it. That's right. We saw that Despicable Me 4 ad with the basketball player Nikola Jokic that aired during the NBA playoffs in April.
And what was great about that was every film wants cultural penetration and cultural tie-in. And when you have a guy who could be potentially the MVP of the NBA Finals dressed up like your lead character and doing a spot where he's at his therapist complaining about people thinking he looks like Gru, not because it's a bad thing, but because he's followed by the minions, that kind of creativity breaks out, and you can see it on how it's scored with us every time they run it. And it's one of those things where you start is, oh, this is great for basketball and ESPN, but it works for everyone. It's the broadest humor. It's why you run out and get tie-in partners like Lego. If you're Despicable Me or if you're Inside Out, you get McDonald's because you start to see that these ideas that don't have to be fully story ideas, but more a slice of life, are what make movies events in this time period.
God, I think that's a really interesting insight about making these movies events and sort of transcending the rest of the market.
And going
Um,
back to what I said at the beginning, you don't make them events just in April, you go back to January and February. And what Despicable Me did by being in the AFC championship game and the NFC championship game was something that registered with us. In the AFC game, with 11 spots in there for entertainment, they were number one, and that's incredible. And it's a tribute to how strong the franchise is. And in the NFC game, they were three and only behind Wolverine and A Quiet Place, which is probably the fourth highest, you know, I'd say potential film in the next 8 weeks. So what you saw is not only kicking off early, but kicking off broadly and creatively. Inside Out too benefited from being in the post game of a Super Bowl that went into overtime and took off. And Despicable Me came back in the Super Bowl and did a spot not about the movie, but about AI. And that takes a certain amount of confidence. And that confidence came from being smart enough that they already introduced the spot in the AFC and the NFC and knew afterwards that they would have lots of different spots that told the slices of what made this challenge of Gru and his family so interesting that they could appeal to almost the editorial pages, which was the goal of that spot in the Super Bowl.
All right. Yeah, no, that's those are great points. What are you expecting to see in the fall? What kinds of movies and when do you think we'll sort of be back to either a pre-work stoppage or a pre-pandemic level of movie production and movie going among the public?
Yeah, and I enjoy talking to you about the shift that comes once we leave this family movie atmosphere to the fall. And you've seen Warner Brothers date Beetlejuice there. You've seen them also date the Joker sequel with Lady Gaga joining this time. And you've seen Apple and Sony the other day put the movie Wolves with Brad Pitt and George Clooney there. All of these say more mature themes, things that could be possibly a little bit on the frightening scale. Close to Halloween get dated there, including Beetlejuice. And they're a prestige play for Academy, and they also build more and more toward that, and also to Thanksgiving and Christmas when you have films like Gladiator come back, where you're going with your big budget and grossing needed and grossing hopefully strong potential films from Thanksgiving to Christmas. So I feel good about the end of the year. Going back to what I said in the beginning, you had leading off in May your singles and doubles hitters, and you've pushed back this power lineup, and so I think they're different types of film in the fall than the summer, but the potential there, and they've been dated there both as a result of the strike, which pushed some films back, and also people are giving each other distance now. So it's a rare year where people don't attribute to a disappointing opening to the other films in the market. A lot of people are getting their own runway, with the exception of Wicked and Moana 2 uh, being close to each other, and those are two huge movies um, as the year ends.
Got it. All right. Do we think by next year, 2025, we'll be back to sort of baseline of regular production schedules? Will we have caught up from the strikes and the pandemic?
Yeah, ending with this baseball metaphor that it's always wait until next year. We've seen 3 years since movies started coming back in 21. We're saying, and next year for the first time you'll see all the effects of this reconfigured thinking of the types of movies that could make big films that were pushed back a year, including Mission Impossible coming back. So I'm a fan as someone that grew up watching the Mets. You have to believe wait until next year. This lineup is really going to have its full potential. Um, but the truth of the matter is they're all winners on paper until it comes out. But I feel comfortable that versus this idea of trying to maintain the year before, we will have an uptick. It's just how great it is.
Yeah, I know a thing or two about as a Mets fan as well. Waiting for next year, being disappointed. Maybe some of these studio execs could pitch because the Mets could really use some help in the bullpen. It's been pretty
Yeah,
rough.
I think everybody is pitching in, and there may be some surprise movies, and that's really when theater owners get excited. Like the utility film that you didn't think was coming, and Angel Studios has had some of those in the past. Crunchyroll anime. So the beauty of this business is you don't know where that big win is going to come from.
All right. Well, last question. Do you have a dark horse breakthrough summer or fall 2024 movie prediction? What's some under the radar that you think could be a big hit?
Yeah, I think the two films that could be of interest. Paramount is going to do Smile 2. I don't think I've recognized a horror film that was more clever and breaking through with its cultural penetration. And so the upside for something like that is once you've established the concept, these things can open 50% higher the second time around. And if they're a better movie, the sky's the limit.
All right. Well, Steve, thank you so much for your time. Really appreciated having you here. And yeah, wishing you a happy summer movie season. Hope you get a chance to get inside the AC and see some good films.
Yeah, and I hope we can regroup in August and see that these positive predictions were not only leveraged by the data, but actually came to fruition based on reigniting this box office, which I think we're going to see in about 2 weeks. So thank you for all these great questions and the time today.
All right. Well, we'll see y'all next week.